No excuses will be good enough to catapult you into your future. Every excuse that we use keeps us tied to the past, and the past won't last. This is the coach, and I want to encourage you and invite you to listen to me every single day on the Coach's Corner. That's right. You can go to www.415-96radio.com. That's www.415-96radio.com, and you can get inspired. Because you know what? We have a philosophy that we have adopted at DCC. And what is it? That I am the common denominator in every situation. If it went down, I might have been the clown. Maybe I might have been masked up and pretentious, but I was there somehow. And so I cannot blame anyone else, them, they, her, and him. Now I'm standing up for me. I'm taking responsibility for my actions, and there I will not react anymore, but I will learn how to respond. And when I listen, I know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be safer. Why? Because I believe in me. It's not just a quote anymore. It is my philosophy of life. And I want to see you there. www.415-96radio.com.
I want to ask you a question. Who's coaching you? Who's asking you the tough questions? Who's telling you, man, you're the common denominator to all of your issues and challenges? Who's telling you, man, all day long you become the magnetic pulse that attracts to you both good and bad? I want to be your life coach. I want to be the one that cheers you on to the finish line. I want to be the one that you ask the tough questions. And it doesn't mean that I have all the answers, but that means that you have a partner, someone who believes in you, not the you see right now, but the you can't imagine, the you that you are to become, the you were destined to be. I always say we both need the positive and the negative. It's not enough to have the knowledge of the matter, but we must have the wisdom as well. For wisdom settles it. And that's what I want to offer you as you join me on the Coach's Corner. I want to offer you the wisdom of the matter. Maybe it might be relationships, talking about our campaigns for more, for life, the dark room of our subconscious, our spiritual journey. Whatever it is, I want to be there to encourage you, to build you, to challenge you, to cheer you on to the finish line. I'm qualified to do this. Why? Because I'm you.
Welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner right here on SIBN Radio. My name is Marcus Sillett, and thank you so very much for joining us today. We appreciate you stopping by. My name is Marcus Sillett, as I said, a.k.a. the Coach. And as I approach the microphone, admittedly, I have personal and professional issues. Yes, I do. I got some baggage that I'm looking to check in, all right, so that my life can get right like everybody else. That's right. And also, I would like to think that I'm bringing to the microphone the wisdoms of the matter, from my flaws, from my falls, and so much more. And so, I trust what is the outcome of every show, that I can earn the right to speak into your life. And let me also say thank you to all those that listen to us worldwide, from the European cities and also over in Africa. We have a lot of people tuning in over in the Jamaica and over in the Caribbean islands. Thank you so very much. People tapping in in Mexico. Watch out now. Thank you so very much. Those in Brazil, Australia, thank you so very much. On the various platforms where we air, if you want to help make DCC happen or keep SIBN Radio fresh and relative, then why don't you visit www.we-support-Select-USA-TV for secure subscription, partners, and collaboration. This is the Coach. Well, how are you doing? How are you doing today? I trust that everything is going, maybe not your way, but, close to it, And today we're talking about black inferiority and white superiority. And this is the continuation of Growing Up Black. You might want to say the Growing Up Black series. I haven't made that an official thing or anything, but you know, we're talking about growing up black due to some of the things that are in the news, but we probably needed to talk about this anyway. You know, when a tense moment arises within the framework of our culture, it's so much easier to point and to blame and to holler and scream and to march. But at the end of the day, I know for myself, I had to take a look within myself, and I always try to ask myself the honest questions, even though I may not always give the honest answers. I try to say, okay, where is this anger really coming from? And for a lot of us African-American men, the experiences that we see in the news hit home because they are similar to what we went through growing up. But we never talked about them. We never processed them. I mean, we're not civil rights leaders. Civil rights leaders today are taking a beating from the public media. I guess they took a beating back then. But, a lot of us commoners, if you will, peasants, we've never talked about the experience. And so I just wanted to delve into a little bit of the black inferiority and the white superiority. Take a small break. Be right. DJ, what you doing over there? Be right back. Be right back.
Are tuned in to Chat with the Coach. Brought to you in part by SIBN Television and Radio Networks. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest at Select USA TV. That's SALETTE USA TV. SIBN Television and Radio Networks is powered by Select USA TV. We'll be right back after this. Responsible, accountable. Who taught you that? My daddy taught me that. That's right, the new book all the way from Asheville, North Carolina, representing the legacy of Benny Lake is Keenan Lake, the author of My Daddy Taught Me That, the book and the program for young men in Asheville, North Carolina and throughout the region. Tune in to the program, the project, and the book at mydaddytaughtmethat.com. For more information, email lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com or call 828-582-2261. That's 828-582-2261. mydaddytaughtmethat.com.
Well, we're back here. Thank you so very much. Doing things a little bit different on DCC, on SIBN Radio. Thank you so very much for tuning in. We're talking about black inferiority and white superiority. And we're talking about this in the framework or in the context of growing up black. Now, listen, we talked a little bit on the last segment, about my experiences in Cleveland, Ohio. And I explained to you, many of you, that I grew up in the Huff District. The Huff District was notable or known for historical rioting. It seemed to be not the melting pot, but the core of racial tensions in Cleveland. And my parents lived on 65th, I believe it was, 65th Street, and 55th, you could say, is in the middle between downtown and the middle of the city, so to speak. And then you got 105th. You can hear Bones, Thugs, and Harmony talking about 105 and St. Clair and all that. So we were right there, in 60s and 70s, right there on 65th or 62nd, whatever it was. And so we had white flight folks that were moving from the inner city that had already been there, the white folks that had already been there, leaving the inner city. But a lot of them had, we got our milk, I think, from the milkman that had his dairy farm not far from our home. And I do mean dairy farm, okay? Smack dead in the middle of the urban community. I'm not tired to see cows and all that, but the point of the matter is he had milk trucks. The milks that came in a glass bottle and all that. So, we had that experience. Then we moved over there to the Lexington district, which is still in the Huff district, historic for all the same. I think that one of the famous, maybe Jackie Robinson, somebody played in League Park there off of Lexington, which was an infamous baseball field in the midst of our community. And so with this context, though, we had whites in our neighborhood. It wasn't an all black neighborhood. It wasn't an all white neighborhood, but there was this constant tension. And then when I would, talk about my, childhood as coming up, I had tensions at home. So I really didn't know what to think, but pretty much I was taught initially that black, to me, now this is just my opinion, that black was inferior. My father sat me down. I was 7 years old and said, and I want you to put this in context of some things I'm going to say about my father a little bit later, because my mother and father got married very early and they wanted to make a point to their kids about society. But my father sat me down and he said, listen, I want you to know that we are looked upon. This is 7 years old. We're looked upon as thieves, robbers, lazy, blase. And so whatever happens, this is what you're going to do in my house because you represent our name. You will not bring shame to the house. You would not do this. You would not do that. And, of course, his uncle lived his uncles lived on the same street. So it was like a whole family lived on the same street, and there were white people that lived on our street. So you know what I'm saying? I got mixed messages, but what I got over the years, that what I learned over the years, what I gathered, that then white is superior to black. My father was the only African American on his job. He retired there, but he was the only African American on his job. He started that job at 16. And of course, he, told us stories how he had to be called boy and all this other kind of thing. So we had a very, very complex. I can't really say, because on one hand, I'm seeing the warning signs and I'm hearing the warnings, tones about our race as blacks. But then I'm also seeing whites in our neighborhoods. I'm seeing racial tensions, but yet we still living and going to school with whites. And so I'm not making much sense, but it seems to me that I gathered early on from the consensus of conversations that white was superior and black was inferior. In other words, black was bad and white was good. But it was hard to accept that because, Cleveland, notable for civil rights, notable for human rights, notable for standing up, notable for neighborhood, community, grassroots, all of these kinds of things. And there was always a pushback to this black inferiority, white superiority. But it was very few people who made it clear that we were equal. Now, we were equal because we're living together, and that's probably unheard of, and in certain times, I guess. But just as a kid growing up, it was confusing. 1 minute we living together, and next minute we're fighting. And we're hearing words that we don't hear at home. Beyond the N word, but just you don't belong here, and other things. And so this was the core of my exposure. We talking 6, 7, 8, on through about maybe I want to say 8, 9 years old, and then we begin to see more blacks move into the neighborhood, and as a result, to play into the suspicions and the stereotypes that was painted, with broad strokes and some specific strokes. We were able, and I say we, I mean my brother and I, it seemed like we were able now then to condescend or to give in to this black inferiority because we saw pictures and profiles of blacks doing X, Y, and Z, and we equated that with the inferiority, not good enough, acting below the image, and suspect, and all of these things. When in all actuality, whites did the same thing. It's just that we didn't see it, I mean, if we would have saw whites skipping school, we would have saw what you did sometimes. But if we would have saw whites drinking winos on the corner, I'm sure we would have said, "Oh, okay, that's just a wino," and not just, "Oh, that's a black dude that then gave up on life." You know what I'm saying? So we had a very difficult time. I had a very difficult time with confidence and self-concept based on the words that I'm hearing as a child. But yet I'm seeing that we are living and we are going to school with white. So eventually, the colors were more 70-30 because the movement in the neighborhood was more African American. But I have a couple of things I want to tell you after the break that as I look back now in context regarding my father. It's very interesting stuff. So, man, listen, you're chatting with the coach on DCC. Appreciate you guys stopping in, special edition. Growing up black, man, it seemed like it was the worst experience ever because nobody ever put it in perspective until I was grown and always alone. Then it began to make sense. And I talked to y'all about how Governor James Rhodes had some kind of programs. I still to this day don't know what kind of programs they were, where these truant officers, they flooded the streets. Particularly where we lived at 62nd, 65th Street, and they made sure that we were locked up in detention center for anything. It didn't matter what you did. You could be walking home, and if it's not school time, you're going to jail. And so that I talked to you guys about that, and you had to go back and listen to the other show about that. But I'm just telling you, it's conflicting messages. I mean, the hostility, the tension. This is me growing up. And so when we talk about the Zimmerman trial and other trials, Zimmerman's not the only one. Please don't give him too much credit, okay? When we talk about the context of our response to a trial's verdict, we're talking about it in context of our experience. Being followed, oh my God, please. Try 7 years old, 8 years old, being followed in elementary school by a truant officer coming down by order of Governor James Rhodes in the 1970s. And being arrested for doing nothing, right? And being sent or taken to the detention center. And back in those days, they had those little batons. They were metal wrapped in leather. Nobody ever heard of police brutality. And so we were often beat with those things. So, I mean, we didn't know nothing about no police brutality. This was a part of our normal life. Take a small break. We'll be right back. All right. Y'all ready for that? Y'all ready for a small break? I know you is, because I am. Got to get some of this coffee. All right. This is the coach. Stand by.
You're listening to the sounds of Chat with the Coach, brought to you in part by SIBN Television and Radio Networks. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, SoundCloud, anywhere SIBN Television and Radio is found.
Realize and accept that there is only one philosophy that I have embraced under the Coach's Corner's umbrella. And that is that we are the common denominator in every situation. So I can't blame them, they, her, and him. I am stepping up to the plate and I realize it's all me. Not that it's all about me, but it's all about the legacy for those that come behind me to achieve a height of success that I can't even imagine. This is called the transgenerational shift of mindsets, that we may propel ourselves into the generations that is to come and tell them, I won't leave you a mess that you have to clean up, but I'll leave you a principle-centered life that you can celebrate and catapult into more success. Join me on the Coach's Corner at www.415-96radio.com. That's www.415-96radio.com, and follow me on Twitter. That's the only way you can keep up with the coach. That's right, DCC is in the house on SIBN Radio.
Well, we're back here. Thank you so very much for joining us. Black inferiority, white superiority. The one thing that I learned when I was, a teenager, a young adult, I learned several things. I so naive about the world, really. You know what I mean? I learned about welfare. I was going, I don't know if it was to the bookstore. I used to love to buy books. I didn't know you could buy books used at the time, but I used to love to go to the bookstore and buy my books. I mean, I was reading things like Foreign Policy and Time Magazine and other books at the time as a kid. So I used to go downtown to the bookstore. And I remember going down there with one of my partners, and, you know, I think we were in high school at the time. And I said to him, and I'm in high school now, I said to him, why is all these people, I mean, it was so packed. And he said, well, it's the first of the month. I said, first of the month? So what does that mean? He said, oh, people cashing their check. Talking about their welfare check. So I want to, you know, I asked myself the question later on, how the hell can I grow up in the hood? I mean, in the hood, okay? Not hoodie hood. It wasn't hood back in the day because it was dirty, nasty, and broke down. I need y'all to understand that. Hood, man, it's where we gathered. It's the grassroots of the movements. It's the where we, our stomping ground. You know what I'm saying? Not hood where everybody was cussing, disrespecting. No, I ain't talking about that. The kids didn't redefine what hood really means today. But the hoodie hood is where the civil rights, you know, the historic district, the Huff district. I mean, it's our neighborhood. I'm trying to understand, how did I not know about welfare all this time? I'm finding out in my teenage years about welfare. So anyway, my buddy, he's explaining to me about the first of the month. You get the people get their check, and they go to cash it at these various cashing places. And then he tells me about the food stamps and all that. I didn't know about any of that until I was nearly a senior in high school. That's when I found out about it. And I was asking myself, why didn't I find? Well, my father, without giving away all of my story as a child, because that's a lot of it is separate from this subject matter. My father did not have a mortgage. He bought his house cash. My father never received any government assistance other than, I think my mom had WIC at one point for milk, you know, because I don't know if that was because after breastfeeding, it might have been part of the prenatal, you know, something program there at the neighborhood clinic. But other than that, my father never received any substance of help from the government. He was always able to carry his family. And my mother never worked, by the way. My mother never worked. So you can imagine all of these pieces of the puzzle still not fitting. I mean, I'm a senior in high school and I'm still not, it's not making sense. I'm like, okay, what's really going on? And it's still not making sense. And then later on in life, I'm going to fast forward for a quick second. I found out my father was well-to-do. Not well-to-do because somebody left him something, but because he worked, he invested, he made things happen. He was consistent. He was a giver. He was charitable. And he was very disciplined. He didn't believe in a lot of debt and all of these other things. But, you know, this flies in the face of the inferiority, a complex makeup that I form from conversations of less than empowering conversations about black folks in our own neighborhood, in our own home. And even my father, to his demise, he helped paint the picture. He was the main painter in this picture that we have to do X, Y, and Z more than ever a white person would have to do it, because we are seen as, we are thought of as, we are historically in the perspective of a nation as inferior, you see. And so this challenge, and I want to ask myself the question right here on the air, then was I prejudiced against white folks growing up? No, I was not, believe it or not. Because remember, I told you, we lived and went to school with white folks. And so just because there's racial tensions and there's racial fights and there's racial breakouts, and I do mean breakouts where you got 150 kids on one side and 100 kids or 80 kids on another side, and they ready to go for blows in the schoolyard. You need some help right there. You know what I'm saying? So, but I wasn't prejudiced, and without giving away my personal story, because I've shared it before, but it's not in line with the subject matter today. I was in foster care for a minute. I was in institutional care because of the programs that James Rhodes seemed to have instituted for black boys, targeting us at the elementary level. You know, I was around more white people, and of course the tensions didn't stop. But I asked myself the question: well, why wasn't I prejudiced? Why wasn't I angry and hated white people? I never hated white people because I was ignorant. I didn't know what all the fight was about. I didn't know why we were supposed to be bad and they were supposed to be good. I didn't know why we were supposed to be less than and they were supposed to be better than. I didn't know why, or I didn't have any proof. I didn't have any proof to this. Blacks are lazy. Blacks are, hoodlums. That was the word back then. Now they call them thugs. I didn't have any proof of that. I know my father didn't tolerate that. As Keenan Lake says, my daddy didn't teach me that. So what was I going to be prejudiced for? I tell you what, in my show, my next show, I'm going to tell you my experience that possibly could reveal how I felt about white folks. I watched a very famous TV show the same year I think Elvis died. I think it was 76, 75, 76. And I want to tell you in my next show what happened. I don't even want to give you the framework. I want you to tune in to DCC. This is a special edition, Growing Up Black, talking about my experiences in the historic district of Cleveland, Ohio, the Huff District, the Lexington District, extending all the way to really Wade Park, in that area. The tensions all the way up to 105, 55th Street. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Tune in, and I'm going to pick up where I'm leaving off about a show that I watched on television. I want to give you the framework of where I was when I watched it, what I was doing, and what happened to my mind and my emotional concept after I watched this show, and how my struggle now is ensued on a personal level. I want to talk about that on my next show, man. Thank you so very much. That's my time. This is the Coach, man. Appreciate you guys stopping by. And I'll check you guys out on DCC on SIB in the radio. It's Coach. Hardcore motivation, baby. Daily inspiration, sugar. Spiritual foundation, brother. That's what you got to have when you're rolling with the Coach on DCC. We offer it every day, Monday through Sunday, man, right there at www.415-96radio. That's right, www.415-96radio. Hardcore motivation, daily inspiration, and your spiritual foundation from the Coach. Y'all got to tune in. Follow me on Twitter at SelectUSATV. Come on, Instagram, follow us. Thank you so much. Follow me there at SelectUSATV. And don't forget Facebook.com at SelectUSATV as well. And we have a show page. Don't forget the Coach's Corner on SIBN Radio on Facebook. Whatever you do, tune in. Hardcore motivation. Tune in. That's right. Daily motivation.